What's up, guys? It's Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. We got my man Cory Jenkins on the line today. How you doing today?
Not bad. Doing good.
Cool. So, Cory's one of our distance teammates. You know, he's been running our online coaching program for a little bit now. So, for the people that are listening and maybe don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you got going on, and if you want to maybe tell us a little bit about like some of your best competition numbers and some of your like iron cred as well.
All right. Cory Jenkins, 27, member of the U.S. Air Force. From Louisiana, currently stationed in Japan. Was in England before that, so a lot of traveling. So working out in between all this traveling kind of sucks.
Sure.
Competition lifts, best squat so far, 650. Best bench, 380, and best deadlift, 777.
Very cool, man. So yeah, you definitely been making some great progress, especially in the squat, and you're approaching that 800-pound deadlift, which is really cool. I want to rewind a little bit, and I definitely want to talk about how you're training like currently, because I know it's definitely not optimal. But I just want to rewind a little bit before you kind of currently. Did you play any sports growing up? How did you get into fitness? How did you get into like lifting initially? How did that like happen?
Okay, so I've been playing football since I was 5 years old. So football has always been part of my life. Like I said, played all the way up until I joined the military in high school. During the military, did the whole flag football thing. Found my way into England, where I actually put the pads back on and fell in love with it again. But at that point in time, I was balancing football and powerlifting at the same time, which didn't really add up. I was pretty much sore, or it just sucked every day.
So what made you kind of decide that you wanted to focus more on just the lifting side of things versus playing football more?
So like I said, I was doing both at the same time, and my friend, who's also a powerlifter, he was like, hey, you can either be a jack of all trades or a master of one. And at that point, I was like, you're right. I'm pretty much at the end of my football years as far as that was going to take me. So I just put everything into powerlifting. Me and my actual football coach, he actually the one who like helped me get started with it, like bring me through like the rules and like, hey, I can do this, do that. Hey, this is what you need to get this up, blah, blah, blah. So we started really tackling it, and then that's when it led me up to my first meet.
What made you decide that you actually wanted to compete? Like, how did you hear about powerlifting, and what kind of made you decide that you actually wanted to, get on the platform versus just kind of lift in the gym?
So I've heard about powerlifting just through various YouTube videos and Facebook, and I actually seen this random post. It was on Facebook about military national USAPL, and I was like, that should be perfect for me to like jump in and get started.
Yeah.
So heard about it, do that. Like I said, me and my coach prepped for that, and then he set me on to that, and that's when it really started taking off. Like I said, I didn't know much about it, the technical side, when I got to the meet. So luckily, there were a lot of like old heads and whatnot, like giving me tips, like, "Hey, do this, do that." And I didn't know it was such a tight knit community. I thought it was gonna be like nobody talk to each other, just you do your thing, they do their thing.
Yeah, I think for the most part, powerlifters are always, especially the guys that have been there a while, they want to give back. They want to see the newer lifters like do well. So I think that's definitely a great lesson for sure. So we mentioned a bunch of times that you're in the Air Force, you're in the military, kind of traveling a lot. What made you kind of decide that you wanted to join the military, and how has that kind of been? Like, what have some of your responsibilities been just on that side of things?
I always had, I kind of always wanted to join the military. I was just kind of like, I guess, scared to commit to it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I just wanted to like do my part, serve the country. So,
sure.
I just right after high school decided to just jump right in it. I said, started off in North Carolina, spent 3.5 years there. Did all my training strictly for football. So I did the whole bench, squat, deadlift, but it wasn't necessarily for powerlifting. It was just to get me strong for football.
Yeah, just more general strength. Yeah.
And my plans was to go to the Air Force Academy from there for football, but in the process of that, I tore my ACL and MCL, so that pretty much took me out of commission. And as I was healing for that, I PCS to England. and that's when I started back hitting the weights. Same thing, bench squat, deadlift, and going from there.
When you had that knee injury, how did you kind of overcome that, and what was kind of going through your head, like mentally? How did you kind of bounce back from that?
So I pretty much looked at the football players who had the similar injury, and I know I wanted that same goal as them to just come back stronger, come back faster, and pretty much come back better. So my whole mentality was like grind, get this knee right, then everything else will take off from there.
Very cool. So one of the things I think is really cool about you, and one of the reasons why I love kind of showcasing some of your lifts, not just because of your strength, but you don't always have the best equipment. You're kind of moving around a lot. Sometimes you're deadlifting with those hex plates. You got a really crappy barbell, but you're still like managing to get stronger, and you're still managing to get better. So what have been some of the challenges of just traveling a lot, being in the Air Force, and what advice maybe do you have for people that maybe are in a similar situation? Maybe they're in the military, or maybe they just don't have like the best access to like the best equipment. What would you say to those people?
Like you said, I definitely traveled around a lot. Went to various spots which didn't have a gym whatsoever, so that part definitely sucked there. I just made do with what I had, so either went down the street and found a gym, or found a gym somehow to get my lifts in. But like I said, being on certain military bases, they don't always cater to powerlifting, so that definitely sucks. So they have like the cheap bars and, like you said, the hex plates, which they really suck to work out with. But I would say my best advice to somebody with just say a similar situation is have your goal set, and then once your goals are set, you'll find a way to make do with what you got. Sure. Pretty much.
Yeah, Dan John, strength coach, says the goals keep the goal. So whatever you have access to, just think about what are going to be some things, what are going to be some activities that are going to take you closer to your goal. So I know that there was some time where you didn't have access to any weights at all. I think that you did some body weight training. Yes. You just make do with what you have. You don't always have the best things, and like I said, you're still lifting, say 700 pounds on a deadlift. Even sometimes with like the worst barbell and like the worst plates, you don't always have.
Yes.
You don't have the special the calibrated bar, the calibrated plates, the nice combo racks. You don't always have all that stuff, and that's great if you could have access to train with it. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes some of us we get a little spoiled that have like access to nice gyms, and like it's okay to just make do with what you have sometimes. And I think you're a great example. One of the things why we like to showcase you is because you always kind of find a way to get the work in, and I think it shows in your competitions as well. So I want to talk about a little bit of like some of the things that maybe we've been. What are some things that you feel like's been helping you progress? Obviously you're approaching an 800-pound deadlift in competition. You're getting close to that 675, 700-pound squat as well. Approaching a 400-pound bench press. So what are some things that you kind of attribute to your strength and your success, or what are some things that has kind of helped you along the way?
Honestly, for me, it is the program and all the volume in the program, because before I was with you, I would go in there and just say, max out the squat, then max out the bench, max out the deadlift. I didn't get any volume in. I would just work up to the heavy single and pretty much call it a day, because I felt like I guess it did work, even though I wasn't really doing anything at all. So definitely the program, and like having something set for me versus me going in there and just kind of like winging it every day. So that definitely played pretty much the major role in it, honestly.
So yeah, you mentioned that there was a little bit of an increase in volume and things like that. Do you feel like there's any specific exercises or specific parts of maybe phases in the program that like played a big role or maybe you felt like it had a big difference from like just doing your own thing versus on the program?
As far as each specific lift goes, I would say for me, which worked was for the squats. It was definitely the tempo squats. I've never heard of it until then, and
so using a little bit of the slow eccentric, slowing down a little bit, yeah.
And the fact that I do, I guess my lower part is a bit slow. It definitely works for me because it's slow and more control. As far as the bench goes, same thing, tempo and pause. I never really, before powerlifting, I thought touch and go is the only way you bench.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a good point. A lot of people, and I think really holding yourself to a high standard especially with those
Yes.
pauses, because as you know, sometimes you get the competition, and sometimes a judge is going to hold you there a little bit longer than you'd like. So
Definitely.
having that strength and reserve in the bottom is going to be really important for a competitive lifter, and sometimes you got to adjust the situation. Maybe okay, today's a little bit of a longer pause, so maybe you got to lower your expectations on bench a little bit. This judge is maybe a little bit more generous, so maybe you can expect to have a little bit of a bigger lift on that particular day. So I think that's some great advice. And then for the deadlift,
Definitely the deficit and the conventional. I'm a sumo puller, so pretty much
it's working the back strength.
all I do is pull sumo. So the fact that I do switch to conventional up until I can't go anymore is definitely the major role. Because for me, conventional is what builds strength, honestly. So you're gonna work with that, and then sumo is more of a competition and getting dialed in for me.
Cool. Yeah, I think those are some good points. Sometimes if you're a low bar squatter, and then if you're like a sumo deadlifter, doing something like a high bar squat or conventional deadlift, it's a little bit more of a longer range of motion. Um, Typically, if those are your stronger lifts, you're going to be using a little bit less weight, but there's going to be a higher muscular demand. In the case of a conventional deadlift, you're going to work your lower back a little bit more. Typically, not as much as on the hips. So I think it's important to kind of be strong everywhere, even if that's not your competition stance. And then obviously, as you get closer to the meet, you can be a little bit more specific and train your competition stance a little bit more frequently. And then be a little bit more specific. But yeah, I think that's some great advice, because sometimes we get so concerned with being too overly specific, and then we're not actually working our weak points. So I think that's a great point. Very cool, man. For people that are maybe starting out, maybe they're on the fence of getting involved in powerlifting, or if they're not sure, like they want to get into competing, what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of just getting started in powerlifting and strength training?
Pretty much the same advice I give to everybody who just say comes up and talk to me, or like, hey, why do you powerlift and all this? Just do it honestly. I mean, whether you're young, a kid, my son's about to start powerlifting soon, whether you're or older grandma or grandpa or older male or female, just get up and do it. It's good for you. I don't know. I highly recommend it, honestly.
What what do you find that you get, like, what kind of satisfaction, or how do you feel like when you're hitting a personal record, or you're at a meet and I think you got best lifter at your last meet, so I'm sure, like, when you accomplish things like that, like, how does that make you feel, and what does that kind of give you?
It's really hard to describe that feeling, honestly. I'm more of like a self person, so I mean, the medals and trophies, that's like exterior stuff. That doesn't really do anything for me. It's just the fact that, hey, you're putting all these hours in, all this sweat in, all this pain in, just for this one lift. So I mean, for me to hit even a 1 pound PR is pretty much the world for me, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
It's showing that I'm improving and not going down.
Right, and I think that's a good point. I know that, like, your last contest, like, you weren't able to hit a bench competition record, but you were able to really substantially improve your squat, and you improved your deadlift, so your total went up. And I think it's good to kind of, sometimes people we tend to focus just on the negative instead of seeing the good in things. So I think that's great advice. Like, even if you hit a 2.5 kilo record, that's still progress. Even in the smallest, and so that's always good. And I think that if you're always finding some improvement, whether it be technical, whether it actually be weight on the bar, or you did one more rep, try and focus on that. And then if you could stack those wins, build some more positive momentum, that's going to allow you to have really good gains in the long term. So, but yeah, I think you're doing fantastic, man. We're really proud of you, and we're definitely excited to see like what you could do in the future. And I think especially one of the reasons why I want to get you on today is that you don't have the best situation. Like, things are not like perfect. Your sleep is not always perfect. Your equipment is not always perfect. But you still find a way to get it done. And I think it's really good advice that, you just focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And if you continue to focus on the positive stuff and build on those things, I think that you'd be kind of surprised in like how far you could take it. So, yeah, so that's kind of like why we wanted to get you on today. So for people that are maybe want to follow, maybe check out some of your lifts on Instagram, where can they follow you? Where can they find out more about you?
So on Instagram, you find me at @bigman_Jenkins10. You'll see me deadlifting more than likely on my profile picture.
Yeah, that's your specialty. So of course, yeah. So you get to see some big pulls. I know the guys at Powerlifting Watch have been showcasing some of your lifts, which is cool to see. So we appreciate that. So yeah, so I know you're approaching some big numbers. We're really excited. We're real proud of you. So definitely give my man Cory a follow, and we wishing you the best of luck in the future. We're gonna close out here, but if this interview did help you, please give it a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Definitely check out the links below. Please subscribe, and thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.